Yo, what's going on? Hey, interesting talk we're going to have today. Something that I didn't think it would work out the way it did, but it worked out a way that was very surprising to me. Today is the 25th of July, and this is actually going to be a really interesting one. So sit down, get some paper, get your calculator. Let's do some math together because this is surprising. You'd seen that I've been advertised on some stuff, getting some people some low rates, but they call the forward commitments. People buying down the interest rates for you. Phenomenal deal, right? There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of people doing some good stuff. There's one that popped up on my radar recently where a guy's like, hey, we're doing a 5.75 for folks, and they're kind of pushing me to say, hey, this is the direction we're going with this. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. You guys do what you're going to do. That's fine. But I'm looking at some of the houses and there's some houses that are popping up. I'm showing you right here that even outperformed those doing interest rates of 5.75% on their 30-year deal, which is pretty wild to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a house that's sitting on my radar right now. And it's in a market I really, really, really like. I like these markets out there that I talk about. This one happens to be Little Rock, Arkansas. Love that market. Arkansas is a favorite market. I definitely love Memphis. I love Indiana. There's a lot of great markets. But this particular house is just a clean little place, right? It's indicative of what I told you about before. The last house, that went immediately, that had the garage. This one, carport, pretty common, right? Common has the carport. We see it all over the place. There's actually another one I'm going to have here this week that's going to have that probably. It's sitting in my queue. I thought I'd talk about this one today. So this one right here, we're going to go over some numbers with this one because this one is where it gets really, really interesting. We're going to compare, let's say you've got two different sellers. One says, hey, I can get you a 5.75 interest rate because we're doing the buy down, right? Which is sexy. Love it. Or you're going to do what we're talking about would be the people that like to leave meat on the bone for you. In this situation here, this particular house will sell right now because it needs some rehab. It's not monster rehab, but it needs some rehab. It needs to be cleaned up inside. And we know it gets expensive to do that kind of stuff. So between purchase price and renovation, you're going to be $108,750 into this house, right? So you're going to do this kind of like on that BRRRR strategy. And if you want to understand how to do it, you can literally buy this house for 108,750. It's worth 129. That's going to be the total ARV is the estimate on this after some appraisals have been done. That's what I've been told, right? I'm going off of information I've been given. So worth 129, 108 purchase price, 108,750. So the way that we talk about the way to finance this thing, there's a way to do it or you finance it for the 103,200. That's 80% of the value, 129,000. There's a way to do this when you're doing these, buying it with the rehab, that BRRRR strategy. So, or some call it a Berkey. So you have to talk to me about this and I'll show you how. So in this scenario, you're financing 103,200. You're basically in this thing for $5,550. That's kind of your down payment when it's all said and done. It's all closed out. You got your final loan, $5,550 in this is what you're down. Now, if you bought this with one of those outfits where saying, hey, we're going to sell this to you for 129,000 ARV and we're going to buy down the rate for you to 5.75, smoking deal. Well, you're going to have to come in between the closing costs and the down payment of 20%. You're talking about, because that 20% down on that deal is $25,800, right? Now you're having to come in. Sometimes those 5.75s don't come unless you're putting it 25% down. So now these numbers will even get worse. But let's do 20 because that's more aggressive. And it's actually something you can't even get 20% down on 5.75. I doubt you're going to see those out there. It's possible, but I doubt it. So you're going to see that 20% down. That's 575. That's $25,800 down. Well, we just said you can get into this puppy, same house, for $5,550. So there's a difference right there of $20,250. Actually, no, sorry, it was $25,800. So a difference of $20,250. Do that math again. 20% down on 129,000. I will do it again to make sure that I'm not leading you wrong. 129,000 times 0.2. $25,800. That's what we got. Now, the deal I'm telling you, you can actually end up when it's all said and done at $5,550. That's a difference of $20,250. You pocketed that money, right? So you forwent getting a 5.75 rate to keep $20,250 in your pocket. Pretty good, right? But then you have costs, right? So all in on the cost, you're probably about $17,750 on the deal we're talking about. So when you're buying it, the Berkey, when it's all said and done, let's say $17,550 because you got some other things to cover while you're doing the rehab part. But When you're talking about the other one, you had to go all in with the 25,800. You're probably at 35,800. So let's say 35 grand, somewhere in there. So you're still putting away about $18,000 in your pocket. That's the difference between the cost structures and the down payment. Still 18,000 coming back to you. So now let's talk about the amortization. So you've got both of them, $103,200 loan on both. They're both 80% loans, right? Over that 30 years, your tenant will be paying that off, right? They're going to pay that off. So that is equivalent to $3,440 per year that your tenant is going to be paying you. Now, we're also factoring this in an appreciation of 2%. Not sexy. They appreciate more than that, but let's just say 2. 2 is very, very, very conservative. So on a 2% appreciation, you're looking at $2,580 a year that it'll appreciate on the value of that home. That's on the total value. Well, when you do those two numbers together, well, not even together, 3,440 on the amortization of the loan, then paying off the loan. When you're doing the deal we're talking about, that's a 19.6% return. Because remember, you're in this deal for $17,550 approximately. That is the 3,440. Do your math, is 19,600. Now, flip around the other deal. You got a great rate, but you put in a hell of a lot more money to get that great rate. What is that rate costing you? That 3,440, because of all the money you put in, that's actually, you're at a 9.5% return on the money you invested, because you invested 35,800, not 17,550. See the difference? Now all of a sudden you're not making as much money because you had to put more money in. Now your appreciation on that, the 2580 we talked about, that is 14.7% of your investment on the deal we're talking about. But if you did the full turnkey model where they're giving you the lower interest rate, you are now only making 7.2% on your appreciation. Not quite as sexy, right? Now, your principal and interest is where the difference lies. Where is that, right? Your principal and interest on the one we're talking about is $729 a month. The principal interest on this really awesome interest rate, even though it's the exact same loan amount, remember? That's $598. Big difference, right? That right there is going to be $130.82 per month. That's huge. Like, that's $1,500 a year. I'm going to be making more money on this lower interest rate. But is it really doing much for you? Because remember, you had to put more money into it to get that. Because of all that, if you look at the differences on this, the actual so-called cash on cash, we're not factoring in any property management fees in any of this yet, because I don't even know what they are. The full-on cash on this other one. So you're looking at 10.4% is the cash on cash return because of the smaller on the Berkey, because you're putting less money in, even though you're making less money, $152 a month. If there's 1830 annual, that's 10.4 cash on cash. Look at the other one where you're making a lot more, nearly double the income every month. You look at it at 9.4% because you put so much more money in. Cash on cash is not as good, guys. So you look at the total return. Let's add up the total return. When you're talking about the amortization, the appreciation, and the cash on cash everybody loves to look at, that's a 44.7% return on the deal I'm pointing out right now. That's in front of me. If you bought that full freight and somebody bought down your interest rate for you, so you get this great monthly payment, it feels real awesome. You sleep really good at night thinking you got the badass interest rate. When you go to dinner with your arrogant brother-in-law, you can pound your chest, say, I got 5.75, son bitch, what'd you get? That's all you got, because that's only a 26.19% return on your invested money. You invested a bunch of extra money for literally half the return, 44.7 versus 26.9, just so you can say, I got a great rate. Rates don't matter. I've been preaching that shit for a long time. It don't matter. Somebody sitting there telling you we got a better rate than your guy because we're selling at full freight. Got to look at that. Decide. I'm not saying don't do those, but if you put them side by side, so some of these deals are out there. They're just not prevalent. You got to go to the right places to find them. There's people that are peddling them. Those guys cut corners too. There's some people out there cutting some freaking corners. If you want to be certain you're getting the right deal, when you find these deals, because you'll find them, bring them to me. I'll show you where to look to make sure you're not going to get stuck in the ass. I can't say that about the other lenders out there. All I can say is I know there's a lot of guys out there. So yeah, let's rock and roll. And they just want to get you closed. That's all I care about. I got a lot of people, especially yesterday, I had people in tears on my phone because of what other people were telling them they should do, and they shouldn't have done that crap. So we're not about that. Let's look at this place. There's more. There's a lot more houses. We'll be talking about these a lot, but now let's talk about the market. That's why you come here, right? But I hope you learned something here right now. I think that there's a lot of great opportunity you need to be calling me about. Let's look here at the market and how that's going right now. So this is what we got. This is, in fact, I got to pull up what's happening in the economy too. And I remember where I have moved so much stuff around on these dang computers that I can't even keep track of what I've got where, and I might not even be able to find it. Yep, here we go. Here's what's going on in the economic calendar this week. So we had talked earlier the week about leading indicators. They were down. Then that doesn't really have a whole lot of influence what was going on. But it is the leading indicators what told us about what was going to happen in the crash before the crash really happened. That was a big indicator there. Existing home sales. They went down from what that was anticipated. Initial claims, they're down a bit, so that's good. People are not claiming as much as far as they're trying to their jobless situation. So jobs are a little bit better. Continuing claims, they're actually a little bit up. So you're seeing that being reflected here. Initial claims, with them being a little bit better, we're going to see them take a hit. And we did take a hit in the bonds as a result of it. But the continuing claims, seeing that going up, it's really not pushing us any direction. We're kind of going flat right now as a result of that news. So we also have durable orders. Those are down, but they're not as down as far as they thought. So before they were up 16.5%. Now they're down negative 9.3. So what is that? That's probably about like a 25% swing-ish, somewhere in there, or 25-point swing. Sorry, that's not percent. I've been talking percent so long here with rates, and so that's kind of the long and short of where we're sitting on things at the moment. Inventory as far as crude oils, that looks like that is also. That's down a bit from where it was before, at least from the expectation. So we're kind of sitting in this sideways box. We're going to see this, I think, continue to be our barriers. Right now, we peaked at our moving averages and coming back out. So remember, we were talking about these moving averages being probably our barriers, and that's what they're starting to be. They have become the barrier. We've hopped through some of them, but now we're riding this one down. We're now below this moving average. You're getting squeezed between these two. It'll be harder to see here. I'm going to have to zoom in a bit more. So you're getting squeezed between these moving averages. We'll see where it goes, but this is our range right now. We're kind of right in the middle. So it's really not, it's a lock or float. Either way you want to go, it doesn't really matter because there's not a lot changing that much. But that's today's. I know it was longer than normal. I wanted you to see that. Just because the rate looks awesome doesn't mean the deal's awesome. You got to learn. You got to analyze these deals. So we're going to be analyzing deals a lot more, and I'm going to be actually building a. We got some cool stuff coming. Actually, we're going to be doing some stuff pretty slick, not just here, but it's going to be on doing it live for some folks. So I want to help you guys build a portfolio and understand how to build it right. From my perspective, and from some attorneys, CPAs, infinite banking, we're coming from a whole bunch of angles, bringing some people on. Stay tuned. That's going to be coming in the near future. If you haven't subscribed, do that, please, because we're going to be doing some real heavy duty, deep digging to make sure you're successful with real estate investing, not being led around by the damn rate.